Welcome to this week's FNQ's review, and I have an announcement to make. If you missed last week's broadcast, I think it's important that you know that as of next week we are switching to a Friday, and we will be broadcasting from Black Diamond radio station at Dalkeith, and it is available on the internet, and it'll be live on the internet. We won't be going live with video, but we will be going live in audio. Right then, gentlemen, Alex Grant, Rory Stewart, myself, Stuart Lockhead, we watched I think it was an average first minister's question, let's be honest. I have to say, I didn't think Joanne Lamont was very successful today. Phil had been here, he just said she very much stuck to her notes, and although Salmon gave two very comprehensive answers without actually saying here's CEO so and so of this big business that supports independence, he gave a very comprehensive answer twice, and she ignored what he actually said and just stuck her nose to the speech. I've got here a little contribution from Mr. Attridge, who's travelling first class on East Coast to London at the moment, and he's got to say,
Champagne.
Joanne Lamont,
Socialist.
I know. Joanne Lamont, stupid question, reasonably presented. It was Bob Dudley's personal view, so irrelevant to Scotland. Bob Holman is another self-hating Labourite, ha ha ha. Loved the wee thing's answer in response to JL's first question. JL's presentation was a bit better this week. Well, we scored on almost nothing last week. Both Ruth Davidson and Willie Rennie, good questions on corroboration. Salmon's answer was better though. I'll save what his scores are. By the way, it says Wi-Fi on East Coast is crap. So, we'll start with Norrie this week. What did you think?
I actually agree with Phil. I thought she presented quite well, but she can't get away from reading her notes. I've still got this thing about Salmon that I still think he should just hit the bullet points. I mean, his answer to that was oil's traded in dollars, investment from BP is massive and getting bigger, and they're looking at a 40-year horizon. That was his answer. Then he should have sat down. And then the second time he should have gone up and went, okay, here's a list of the people who are involved with, and that could have been his long drawn out one. You know, Jimmy Smith, Frida Blogs, Tony Bear, whatever, and just read out a list of the people who are members of Bear.
You should have a job as a spad, you know that.
Well, and then, you know, then she could have got up and said, but none of them are CEOs of BP. That's right, because there's only one CEO of BP, and he's already made his personal position.
On top of that, he's been a remarkably disastrous CEO with escapades in Russia.
30 billion losses?
Oh, right. All the losses are in billions. And the disaster, the way they handled the explosion in the Gulf. I mean, it wasn't the fact that it blew up, but the way he handled it as CEO.
Derek Bateman and I think the Herald both pointed out that it was a good day to bury very bad news.
Yes, because BP profits were down. And was anybody talking about BP profits in Britain? No.
So,
Alex.
Yeah, I don't. Just starting from the last point you made. Much as I would like him to say things like that, I think it's okay for Bateman and the Herald to make observations of that sort. It's much more difficult for the First Minister to attack a major company head on. There's no doubt Dudley was, in my opinion, was asked by the UK government to make this statement. He was quite happy to make this statement because it allowed him to bury the 20-25% reduction in profits because that hardly got mentioned at all. I think Salmon certainly should have said he's entitled to his opinion, but if we gave away all our oil to Norway tomorrow, do you think that because it wasn't part of the UK and sterling would make any difference whatsoever to investment? It is nonsense. And by the way, he didn't say that. He just said he thought Britain was better together. He did raise the point about sterling. I've told you what I think about sterling, and if as has been said by many people,
Oil's in dollars.
Oil's in dollars, and if the Chancellor wants to tell us he won't allow us to continue in a sterling area, bring it on as the next leader of the Scottish Labour Party.
Yes, and in any case, if it stops being priced in dollars, it'll start being priced in euros.
However, he finally, just let me say this, he finally did get to the most salient point, which was the Financial Times told you this week that the UK government, who says this is a Scottish question, are encouraging not only foreign governments but companies to speak out against independence. And the vast majority of companies are doing nothing of the sort. But Mr. Cameron is bound to have a few friends who are willing to speak on his behalf. But the idea that this would make the least any difference whatsoever to BP's investment in the North Sea is absolute nonsense. End of.
Yeah, I think strangely enough, the topic that Alex Salmon himself brought up was the use of the term "we things" by Joanne Lamont last week, and that peppered the entire FAQs from start to finish.
Everybody that could did.
Everybody used it. I know she's got a few things to regret. We things and the famous, something for nothing will haunt her till the end of her jurisdiction.
On a slightly bigger canvas, have you noticed how the 2 points that Bet Together and No Supporters are hammering are Europe and the currency union?
Yeah.
The two things they can confidently say they're not going to get answers to because it's the British government that's got the answers.
Or can obtain them from Brussels.
Right.
Yeah, that's right.
It's in the behest.
It's a very easy answer.
So, I mean, why doesn't everybody just get up and keep saying, what are you asking me for? Ask the British government.
Yeah.
Why are you asking me? Ask the British government.
Yeah, agreed.
Boom, boom, boom. And every time it comes up, I'm sorry, Mr. Cameron won't tell me, maybe he'll tell you. Give him a ring.
Looks like Margaret Curran's written something rather controversial in the Daily Record this morning. Either of you guys read that?
No, I haven't read it.
Someone certainly quoted that.
I like this quote of being, I'm in Aberdeen next week, do you want to get him to come in?
Oh, well, that was another thing, the question of Cameron meeting them.
She wrote a piece basically saying, it's all about the wee people, why are we talking about
The elites.
the elites?
Yeah.
And there you go, Joanne Lamont was just talking about elites.
Well, it'll come back
In
to
our questions
bite them every
today.
time they open their mouth now. It's stunningly badly put together.
Yeah.
How many times have they come up with some wee ditty, more FUD, only to have somebody at Westminster come out
Contradict it.
and blow it out the water? Be that the Tories or the Labour Party.
Whether it's tax, income tax, devolved.
However, ironically, that, and somewhat contradictorily, that actually suggests that the Labour Party in Scotland is actually saying things on its own without headquarters telling them, because they keep getting their legs pulled from under them by the likes of Davidson, Curran, etc., who say, oh no, we're not going to do that. But the fact is, there's been several reports this week saying she's on a very sugary peg, because even McIntosh has come out and had a go, and he's part of her party.
Ken McIntosh, Chairboot, Ian Davidson, we don't have anything to do with that, which is devolution of
And we're not coming to your conference.
Aye.
And he got that in as well. He did get quite a lot of things in.
Cracking quote, I think it was in the Herald, from one of them saying, well, I can't turn up, because if I turn up, I'll have to be honest and say I don't believe tax should be devolved. You're like, right, so to avoid telling porkies, you go and hide under the bed.
So, well, exactly. So, but the fact is, they're actually having to come out now and contradict the suggestion that they will come up with some sort of reasonable proposition for further devolution in the event of a no vote. I mean, they can't say anything now about that that's worth anything, can they? Because
the three different parties, the three Better Together parties, don't agree on it.
Well, the Tories don't want it.
Right.
The Labour Party in London don't want it. The Scottish Labour Party possibly do, as a lifeline.
But that's only
The Liberal Democrats, it doesn't matter what they want because they're never going to have the power to implement it.
No, but it'd be fascinating if the Liberal Democrats, although I didn't hear the interview, but Rennie made a presentation the other day, didn't he? You know, trying to suggest they're finally going to catch up with their 100-year promise about home rule and a federal Britain. As you say, it's irrelevant, but it would actually be quite interesting if they stood up and said they were going to do it. Well, they didn't say it. They said, we'll come back.
It was really weird because Mink Campbell produced their report, and it was
Mark
basically
II. Yeah.
federalism.
It hasn't been published yet, has it?
Aye, it came out months ago. And then Willie Rennie yesterday said, oh, and we'll make it serious now. We'll talk about specifics. And I'm going, wait a minute, what?
When was this?
Way back.
Well, they made...
Yesterday they had another go at it, but it must be 3 months.
Well, they've had
Since
15 goes
Campbell
at it.
report.
Steele had a go at it. There's the Steele report, which
Yeah.
everybody seems to have ignored.
There's the Campbell
Mink Campbell
one.
came out with something, and when he was introduced this week on Radio 4, it was Mink Campbell Mark II,
Right.
and then Willie Rennie apparently made some sort of presentation speech or whatever, and I still haven't seen anything. I don't understand why, I can only presume it's because London won't support it, but you know, they can never deliver it, as you quite rightly said, Stuart, but you'd think they might stand up and say something like, you know, we want to increase university fees. But they haven't even said that. None of them are going to come out. I mean, Lord Strathclyde's going to come out with something, and that'll be a hoot. Well, let's face
Well,
it.
that'll be a good one. I thought the First Minister was well prepared today because not only did he get the wee things and use that to some,
times, yeah.
and then he had a go
In
at
his opening statement.
the split in the Labour Party
Yeah,
about
he did,
MPs not going to the Scottish Labour Party conference. But the best one of all was because, and it was so predictable, because Ruth Davidson nearly always asks us a preliminary question, when will the First Minister beat the Prime Minister?
Yeah.
And in comes the convenient fact that David Cameron won't debate, and yet he's fully engaged in the campaign for no. I mean, the hypocrisy just smells. Meanwhile, both the Prime Minister and the First Minister will be, well, just on the outskirts of Aberdeen on the 24th of February, and according to the First Minister, who's checked, there's an STV television studio available, so they could have a debate, and they're only going to be 10 miles apart during the course of the day. I thought that was excellent.
Talking about the Tories not getting involved in the debate, what's her name? Flint.
Caroline
yesterday,
Flint.
Who's the
She's Labour.
She's Labour,
shadow
isn't it?
energy?
She's Labour.
Yeah.
Aye, but I think we're going to see more of the shadow cabinet up here.
Yeah.
And I have to say, she was streets ahead of anything I've seen Labour put in front of a camera. However, she's school of Sawas. She talked over the SNP representative, and Brewer joined in with her and decided to give him a kicking.
No surprise.
But I think we'll see a lot more of that. I think the Tories have decided that the Labour need to get big hitters up here.
Yeah, well, I think as Stuart Campbell he's started to wind this up now. I think he said something about it again this morning or last night. What you're going to see now is the love bombing with people being drafted in from England to tell us that they love us or that you're doing the wrong thing. The thing about somebody like Caroline Flint is, I think she's a real nippy sweetie. She's the one that fell out with Gordon Brown in it because he said she only had her in the cabinet because she was pretty. That was Caroline Flint, wasn't it?
I'm
pretty sure it was.
I must admit, I've always been quite impressed with her.
No, I think she's a pretty good operator, but she is a nippy sweetie. And coming up, and there's a huge risk. It's a bit like Boris love bombing us this week. I mean, if you read that article about Boris, I mean, Scotland Shire could have written that verbatim.
What cliche did he not include?
Oh, it's incredible. Swimming with bagpipes. Swimming with bagpipes. Oh no, I don't think he mentioned because Mark Bars is an insult, but he mentioned all the other things. The more
it was hilarious.
sending people up to lecturers like that is good stuff. It's bound to turn people off.
It does, of course it does. Well, look, we have many things that we want to talk about, not necessarily directly connected to FMQs. FMQs today had only 3 topics. The BP, CEOs of Sainsbury's, etc.,
Right, 4.
not liking
Corroboration.
We had the big two. We had a lot on corroboration again, which
And
did we learn any more? Not really.
well, it confused me. I understood that it wasn't in law. They're now going to have another look at it with another judge. It's still to go back to committee and then go in front of Parliament. They're not happy about it, but it's one of those ones for me where come up to the solution of, you know, the unwitnessed domestic violence rate, so on, which is really kind of what it's focused on. Can you lose the need for corroboration in those areas?
Well, I think the important thing here, and I don't hear anybody saying it thus, I don't think that they've handled this particularly well. There's no doubt the establishment, for whatever reason, don't like it, even though, I mean, much as a Scot who wants independence, you know, the idea that we actually have a unique form of law compared to almost every other, I think almost every other jurisdiction.
I don't think there is another one.
No, I don't think there is one. And we're saying we'd like to get rid of it, which strikes me as remarkably objective, self-effacing, and not saying, well, we're the best and we're keeping what we've got. I think they should be saying to the people who are challenging it, well, are you actually saying, and this is the question I'd like to ask because I don't know the answer, if what we're proposing is actually, for example, pretty much in line with what England does and what most other jurisdictions do, are you saying that all these other jurisdictions have got a highly risky...
Here's an interesting point I have to interject, because I have studied this. You've got to remember that Scots law is Roman law.
Yeah.
English law is common law.
Yeah.
You can't, in any easy way, apart from... But commercial law is different, which is why things like tax and business and all the rest of it is universal across the UK in almost all fields. But criminal law is particularly different, and you can't easily just adopt procedures from a totally different legal jurisdiction.
No, I know, but you can debate
what I've
whether
written down
people are
here
at
is,
risk.
what about the British Supreme Court?
There's another issue.
So you've got the Tories. I'm not sure what the Labour stance is on corroboration. I think, according to Salmond, they were in support of it.
He said it was in their, he said it was in their manifesto
So next
to
time
get rid of it.
some decision by the Scottish courts is taken in front of the Supreme Court, are the Tories and Liberals going to argue that because of corroboration in Scots law, that the Supreme Court of the UK, I think it's not called the English, is it?
No, it's not.
called the British Supreme Court.
I think so, yeah.
Has no jurisdiction because they have a different system of law. Now, we've been here before, but, you know, it would actually mean they would be more in line.
Well, I think that the question I'd like answered, and I haven't had anybody say it, is the change that's being suggested in the way corroboration is used, bringing it, even though it may be a different basic legal system. I think if you could say that the chances of people being taken to trial and found guilty legitimately is increased by us taking this obstacle out of the way to some extent, and there's still enough safeguards in there, blah, 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 blah. I mean, I actually think that because the way Kenny McCaskill's managed this, and it may not be his fault, because it may be that he's up against a lot of people who basically are against change for the sake of it.
Well, it could be. It's seen by certain feminists as a gender issue.
I know it is, but it's not that I'm worried about. It's the establishment, and the Tory party and the Liberal party are using the criticism that's going on as a means of attacking Kenny McCaskill. And Kenny McCaskill has pushed certain things through, as we know, and we've discussed them before. Like
Can I make a point about this corroboration? You should notice that in Scotland you'd almost never see a policeman on his own, on duty, on patrol, because they have to have corroboration. Almost anywhere else, you can see it. In England, you'll see a guy in a panda car just driving around, a policeman, because he doesn't need corroboration to jump out of the car and lift somebody that he sees doing something wrong. But in Scotland, they don't. Think of the cost reductions if you can send a policeman out on his own.
Well, to be quite frank, given what's being done at the moment in terms of the centralisation of the police force, it may be maybe that's his major motivation. If you were cynical, if what you say is literally true, then perhaps his major motivation is not.
They always turn up in
bringing-
pairs in Scotland if there's any question of an arrest or a charge.
My experience is they turn up in a lot more than pairs.
Well,
That's because of what you do at the weekend, though.
It's a strange one for me. I like corroboration. I think it's a good thing. But when a whole section, when it makes it so difficult to get in front of a jury, that's the point.
Aye, but I
You're
think
not doing away with jury trial.
No.
You're putting
Okay.
the evidence
That's
in
fair
front of a
enough.
jury still.
Well, look, gentlemen, we've been talking about this for weeks and weeks, and I think we're in a danger of boring our audience by going into the kind of details that we do on that that topic. I have my strong feelings, but I'm not going to express them here. I think we should try for some scores. Are we ready for scores yet?
Go.
So, I've got them here for Phil Attridge on his first-class carriage on the East Coast trains. I think you're drinking champagne as well and smoked salmon.
He's a Labour man, of course he
Of course
is.
you did. Right, he scored, Salmon apparently scored 9. Joanne, he's been generous, gave her 6. Yeah, Ruth, 4. Willie Rennie got 3, usually gives him nothing. But he says he's still a tosser. And the presiding officer, 6. I don't know, that's set a bit of a benchmark. What about you, Alex?
Yeah, I think I'd pretty much agree with that. I'd give a point less to JoLa, but I'd probably stick with the other scores. Yeah, it's fine.
It's 9 for Salmon, 5 for JoLa, 4 for Ruth,
Yeah,
Willie Rennie, 3.
yeah.
I think Salmon was, I have to agree to some extent, we criticised him, but he was in favour and he could have given a much more robust rebuttal to JoLa, but he was well prepared with the little things, the wee things, and one or two other early spads have given them the right little topics to drop in, so I think he did well. I'll just give him 8. JoLa, no, she wasn't worth a 6 because she dropped the ball by just ignoring his answers twice, which actually I did answer his question, because to expect a First Minister to stand there and produce a list of CEOs supporting independence in the Parliament, he'd be advised not to do so.
Yeah, but it was a perfectly good ploy to try and get him to do
It was,
so.
but in the end she
criticise
blundered
her for
on
that.
by reading her speech, so I'm going to give her 4.
She came out with a couple of one-liners that she doesn't normally, actually.
Yeah, well, Ruth Davidson, there was something frippery, ridiculous frippery, I think was one of hers.
Alex's opening statement about the wee thing.
Yeah.
Ruth Davidson, well, I mean, it's a fair topic, and she handled it quite well, but she got shot down by her opening.
She got slaughtered because of Murdoch's quote in the paper.
But she got shot down in any
That's
case
a good point.
by her opening remarks, so I'll give her 3. Willie Rennie,
Yeah, I'll revise mine at 3. That's a good point. I forgot about that.
Willie Rennie, yeah, again, I think he has been going on about the issue. It's perfectly reasonable for him to go on about the question of corroboration, so I think he's worth a 4. Presiding officer, didn't have much to do, just a 5.
I'd actually like, funnily enough, the likes of Rennie is next to useless. Given what Salmon did in before, say, Ruth Davidson asked the question, he should have said something to Willie Rennie. But I think it'd be more useful if you actually stood up and told me what your plans are for if we vote no, because obviously they're non-existent. I mean, I actually think there's an opportunity for what it's worth to score a few points on the target that the target doesn't want to talk about, because that's classic in First Ministers or Prime Minister's questions.
He did
you don't answer the question, you actually attack them on something else you know they're weak on.
Okay.
But
All right.
I disagree. I agree with you.
Alex. Give him an 8 because he won, but I still think to get the point across, he needs to, I don't know, you can have his preamble and then go, and in answer to your question, no. Boom. He needs to really get punchier. Again, he used to do it. And Joanne. I thought she started well, actually. She was looking quite good. She, as you said, she had her quip back to her.
Yeah, which is very unusual.
But then, as soon as that was over, she went back to the comfort zone of reading her script.
Yeah.
I'll give her a 4. Willie. He sort of vacillates between this, I'm a reasonable, proper politician with a serious question, and paedophilia, if you understand what I mean about the nursery stuff. That, you know,
but it's not paedophilia, but we understand what you mean.
He gets off lightly. His party is in coalition at Westminster.
Well, there was very little of that from Salmond when you think about it today.
Well, that's, you see that?
Salmond treats him quite often quite gently.
But I think that's to the point I was making, that he actually, Willie's decided to ask relatively innocuous questions on which he's got fairly firm ground, but Salmond has to turn around and say, don't talk to me, son, you're one of that lot and you've done this.
Did you watch PMQs yesterday?
No.
Carmichael got up and thanked the Daily Mail for their crusade against the cybernats.
Well, he would, wouldn't he?
Now, I'm sorry, that was bullying by a national newspaper. And for a Secretary of State to get up...
Secretary of State for Portsmouth, you mean?
Aye, well...
I like that.
Ruthie, well, say it again, she's a Tory. There's nothing she can ask that he can't eviscerate her. And he did. Basically by quoting the guy who was sitting behind her.
Oh, aye. Murdo.
Ruthie tries hard. I'm going to give her a 4, which is one better than Willie. Presiding officer, give her a 6 because she had to shout them down.
She did quite a lot of that. 4. So they still didn't give the independence a question.
Again, very true.
If that is to her, if that's her
in her power.
If she has the power to do that, she's still not doing a good enough job.
Right. Willie lost 13, he's last. Ruthie got 14. Well, we kind of split it between 3s and 4s. Joanne, 19. Which kind of, I think we've all accepted she's moved on a bit. She's got a little bit better, but not good enough. You know? And Salmond way out ahead on 34. The presiding officer in second place with 23.
23. Well, look, a little plug for next week again. The radio station we will be switching to, and from next Friday, at the moment, it'll be a weekly show starting at 1 p.m. and finishing at 4 p.m. It's Black Diamond Radio, based in Midlothian, and it's locally across the south of Edinburgh and across Midlothian. It's 107.8 FM, but it is also available on the internet. And I expect we'll be producing a podcast of some sort from the original material. Obviously, with a 3-hour show to fill, you can expect an awful lot more from us. We've been talking here today about a number of high-profile contributors that we're looking to interview, hoping they'll take part, and 1 or 2 have already indicated they're more than willing to do so. So bear in mind, next week it's Friday. If you want to stick with us live, we'll probably start, almost certainly we penciled in to start at 1 o'clock with our First Minister's Questions review, a day late, unfortunately, so it won't be quite so topical, but over the next few weeks, we hope you'll start following us on Black Diamond Radio. And thank you very much, gentlemen, for today's show. We will be disappearing off camera at the moment next week, probably, although I think there's a webcam in the studio, so we'll see. Anyway, thank you, Nori, thank you, Alex, and thank you for watching, and goodbye.